Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR, HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. This is a place of inspiration, education, and hope for a kinder, healthier, and a more sustainable world. On this show, we talk with thought leaders about the things that matter most to you. Our guests, like today's, enlighten and empower us with simple solutions, innovations, and cutting-edge perspectives about the toughest and sometimes the most controversial of life's challenges so that we can more easily face and overcome them. I want to give special thanks to our show sponsor, New Roots Herbal, for making this program possible. As many of you know, they are one of Canada's most respected natural health product companies, and it's wonderful having their support in this very big vision to help the world be a healthier and better place for everyone. To learn more about this great company and their natural health products, visit newrootsherbal.com. And if you'd like to join the vision of this program by sharing your products or services with my wonderful audience of more than 350,000 monthly listeners as a sponsor, contact me directly through my TheresaNicassio.com website. Be sure to join us next time when Marilee McLean will be with us sharing her disturbing story of trying to protect her daughter from being sexually abused by her father and how the legal system responded to her pleas, and also about the wonderful efforts that Marilee is doing to try to help others prevent such things happening. Her courage in trying to fight for her daughter is going to deeply move you. It's quite a story, and it'll make you shake your head. So she's trying to help other people with these unthinkable abuses, and really helping shift our legal system because it's not necessarily always protecting our children, sometimes endangering their safety, actually. But for today's program, this is going to be a very uplifting program for all of you. I just can't even describe my gratitude to be able to share with you today's very special guest. The truth is, it's not often. I mean, I get great guests, and I love my guests, but it's really not often that I'm able to interview someone who I not only deeply respect as a professional, but who has also profoundly touched me personally and my family, actually. For those of you who are also parents of children with learning disabilities, and for those of you who yourselves have struggled with such difficulties in your own life, you are in for a very, very special treat today. Today with us, we have Barbara Arrowsmith-Young, one of the greatest pioneers in educational neuroplasticity of our time. So in the 1970s, way before it was in vogue, Barbara became her own human guinea pig, which all of you know I'm big on the Human Guinea Pig Project. I'm a guinea pig myself. I love doing that. But she creatively applied emerging brain science that she learned about, and she put two and two together, looking at the brain discoveries and lab animal research. And she applied it to herself by developing some non-compensatory-based cognitive exercises in order to transform her brain that have changed the lives of thousands of people around the world. And for those of you who, some of us have been around since those days, you know that, like in the 1970s, people thought that we actually could not change our brain. What we had was what we had, and we couldn't make a lot of changes. So her vision is really brilliant. And also, probably a lot of you know that the compensatory model of learning has really been the standard of care, standard of education for pretty much forever. And she was able to see beyond that, and so she's going to share more about that during today's interview. A little bit more about Barbara. So her innovative work was featured in Norman Doidge's book, and so many of you know her from there, and film called The Brain That Changes Itself. And really, I think that Doidge's book really put the Arrowsmith program on the global map. Her story has also been shared in the new award-winning children's book, The Brain Pioneer, by Howard Eaton, who is very close to my heart. He's the one who founded the school that my own daughter went to, Eaton Arrowsmith School, which is phenomenal. But for Barbara, she suffered herself multiple severe learning disabilities, as well as the social and emotional devastation that so often goes with the territory of living with such disabilities. And I'm really excited to have her voice that here, especially as a psychologist. That really touches me deeply. So her compassion and her courage and her insight, her brilliance are really unsurpassed. In fact, I got some great news this past week that Barbara has just been chosen to receive the 2019 Leaders and Legends Innovation Award from the University of Toronto OISE Alumni Association. And this is a really esteemed award. It honors individuals who've fostered novel ideas, approaches, and solutions in their field. And here she is with us today. We're so blessed. And I just want to say on behalf...
I'm blushing.
Good, that's great. On behalf of my wonderful community of parents and children at the Eaton Arrowsmith School, but I want to say also, as well as thousands of others around the world who have also ever benefited from your program, Barbara, many of whom I know are listening today, I want to congratulate you on your well-deserved award, and thank you for being a beacon of hope and transformation for our beloved, beloved children. Anyway, there's so much more I could say about you. She's a revolutionary educator and special learning needs activist. But I'm going to leave it to you, all you folks listening. I'm going to leave it there and instead invite you to visit her profile page on the TheresaNicassio.com website. And that's Theresa with an H, Theresa, N like Nancy, I-C-A, 2 S's like Sam, I-O with an octopus.com. Go to that website and you'll find tons of information about Barbara, as well as links to her papers, presentations, YouTube videos, and so forth. So I'm just going to leave it there. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. I mean, to have an opportunity to speak about what I'm so passionate about, which is, the potential of neuroplasticity to really address and overcome learning difficulties. I feel like this has been my mission probably almost from birth, given, the challenges that I struggled with, having very, very severe and specific learning difficulties, and then standing on the shoulders of giants, Luria's work coming out of Rushka and Rosenzweig's work coming out of Berkeley, looking at this concept of if we can identify what's going wrong in the brain, can we apply the principles of neuroplasticity to stimulate and strengthen and improve those weak capacities, those weak functions, to then allow the individual to learn with joy and ease and efficiency and no longer struggle with the learning difficulties. So thank you for providing, me with the opportunity to talk about this.
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of you listening already know Barbara and her story, but there's some of you probably who haven't yet heard it. And we just have the hour show. Unfortunately, we could spend hours and hours. There's so much wisdom that she has to offer, which, again, we'll mention also about her book later about where she shares more of it. But would you be willing, especially for those who don't know you and aren't as familiar with your work, can you share a little bit about your story, what it was like growing up, because we can be like eggheads and really have all this knowledge and talk about teaching people, but it's one thing to learn from the top down. It's another when we've had a story and what we learn from kind of the grassroots of our own being, because I know that growing up was not easy for you, and it was way before we knew really about learning disabilities. So can you share a little bit about your story and a few examples of what it was like?
Absolutely. So it was a lot of years ago, dating myself. I started grade 1 in the late 1950s, and as you noted, this was before there was even the concept of having a learning disability. I mean, the term didn't even exist. Mm-hmm. So in grade 1, I struggled. I struggled learning how to read, learning how to write, learning how to do, even understand numbers. I actually got the strap. In those days, they did that because, the teacher, I think she just was really frustrated. She didn't know why I couldn't learn the way the other children were. My notebooks were incredibly messy. Not that I was doing it intentionally. It's just the way I understood my world. And I remember overhearing the teacher talking to my mother in a teacher-parent interview saying basically, don't have really high expectations for Barbara. She has a mental block. There's something wrong. And, she's not going to really go very far in education. And I felt in grade 1 I was given a life sentence of struggle. And my mother was an educator, so she decided that, she was going to teach me how to read and to write and do basic numbers. So every lunch hour I came home and had flashcards. After school I came home and had flashcards. And, I kind of joked that I became a workaholic in grade 1, but that's what it took to just be able to handle the curriculum. And my mother was successful in that I did learn how to read. I learned how to write. I learned how to do basic math. But it wasn't overcoming the underlying learning difficulty. I continued through my whole educational career to struggle, and really what I had significant difficulty was with attaching meaning to things. So my world was that, booming, buzzing confusion that people talk about, where I just didn't really understand when people talked to me what they really meant. If I read something, I wasn't sure that I understood, what the author's intention was. I would use my incredible memory to memorize things and then put in answers on exams, hoping that I'd matched the answer to the question, but never being certain. Laurie had talked about somebody with this difficulty walking around in a constant state of uncertainty and incredible anxiety, and that absolutely, that was my life. So I learned how to compensate by doing kind of heroic effort, which is very typical. You see with individuals with learning difficulties, they put in 5, 10, 15 times the effort, and often their results don't match the amount of effort they're putting in. So some students choose then to stop putting in that effort, and others continue. I mean, I was one of those ones that continued. I don't know which strategy is necessarily better, but it was an incredible struggle, and socially as well, because I didn't really understand why things happened or why people did things. So I struggled academically, I struggled socially and emotionally, and I struggled in sports because I had some areas that weren't working. I didn't know where the left side of my body was in space. I was incredibly clumsy. So my experience growing up was really there was no area that I excelled in. So that was my journey through school.
Yeah. And again, for those of you listening, there's so many more details. I mean, for example, she reversed her letters and numbers were all written backwards. She would read or try to write from right to left instead of left to right. So just the fact that she was able to learn to read and write and do math is nothing less than heroic. And so those of you, again, we're glossing over a lot because we only have so much time. But it's her experiences were so real, and I'm glad you mentioned about the social things. And it's kind of a funny story, funny, but also it's just so perfect that you mentioned how you would come home to do the flashcards with your mom at lunchtime. Well, just like she's about the compensatory thing. She discovered, Barbara, as I read about this, that she would see that if she did the flashcards near a window, she could actually see the light through and see what the answer was on the other side of the card, right?
Yes. And my mother caught on to that, right? She finally realized, so she put her thumb over the the answer, so I couldn't see it through. But it's like all children with learning difficulties. We learn to compensate, right? Because it's so challenging. So we often find these workarounds, which sometimes teachers think we're cheating, and whether we are or not, we're just trying to survive, to succeed and survive. Yeah. Exactly.
Survive and to fit in and all that. And you also, school was so tough that you found some creative school avoidance, going to the bathroom for 45 minutes at a time, or ways to just not be there, even before you really knew what was going on, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was in grade 4 that on my report card it sort of said if Barbara was, attending school a little more regularly, maybe she'd do better. But I learned how to put the thermometer at that time. It was, one of those mercury thermometers. So I learned how to put it on the light bulb, and then just to get the right amount of temperature, so not that I would have to go to the hospital, but enough that my mother figured I couldn't go to school. So, yes, I learned how to fake illness so I could avoid what was just so challenging and so traumatic. And then, everything came to a head in grade 8 where I just could not imagine going to high school. I managed to get through elementary school, and in that period of despair, I actually attempted to end my life. Not that, I just couldn't imagine a future. And no child should feel that way, that they are feeling so much despair that they don't see any hope for themselves. And that's, one of the things that, when I get sometimes discouraged or a little overwhelmed with this work, I think about all the children out there, that may be feeling similar despair to what I felt. And that is what motivates me and makes me passionate, because no child should experience that.
Yeah, and, that's another huge reason why I'm so glad you're here on this show, Barbara. I actually believe that there's many ways that we can save people's lives. Every child, every human being needs to have a sense of mattering to at least one person, but also every person needs to have a sense of feeling of belonging, and that and having hope for who they are. It doesn't necessarily mean to be hope to be some sort of world leader, but hope that you can, fit in and find love and find relationships and friendships. And I think that because of the work you're doing, and this, we'll get more into this later about where all the places you're helping people, and people come literally. I mean, here in Vancouver, Canada, about a third, we always joke around, like a third of the campus was people from Australia. I mean, people literally came from many, many countries, and it's a way to help save our kids' lives. We love our kids, and Barbara, you have been, like I said, a beacon of hope, and it's not just for the academics, because all the other things that go along with it. For example, when you were a student, you were saying it was hard to socially. So how did you survive those years socially? On the playground, were you able to feel like you fit in, or how did you
Yeah, I never felt I fit in, and part of the nature of the difficulty I had, and each learning difficulty kind of has its own flavor and feel to it, and the one that I had, as I said, it meant I just didn't understand what was going on around me. I used to talk about how I felt there was a puppet master somewhere pulling strings, and I had no control over anything that was happening, which is really not a very good feeling to have, like that you're kind of being buffeted by random events. So I had this image as a child growing up, that I was pressing my face against a plate glass window, and there was a banquet happening on the other side of that window, and I could see all these people, happy, relating to each other, having a good time, and I so much wanted to be part of that, but I couldn't. I didn't have the cognitive wherewithal to know how to fit in or to engage, because the part of my brain that could connect relationships, understand what was going on, wasn't working. So, grew up with an incredible feeling of social isolation. I really didn't have friends, or, maybe I could have one friend at a time, like kind of serially in a sense, right? Because it was just too complicated to try to understand people and understand, multiple different people and, who they were, what they wanted. So very socially isolated, and just poured everything into, trying to function academically, and pretty much gave up on the social world because I felt like a misfit.
And just like so many, it's kind of universal. And how were you able to persevere?
I think it's a really good question that I get asked a lot. It was somehow built into my basic nature. I'm not really certain. My family, both my parents had university degrees, were professionals. There was just kind of a belief in our family, not even necessarily spoken, but that we would all be successful academically. So there was that expectation, and so I think that was very motivating to keep me driven. And then I had I did have some areas that were working. The prefrontal cortex, which is that part that drives. I had no idea where I was driving, but that part of the brain that says, keep on trying, was working.
Brilliant. Well, you know what? We do need to take a short break, folks. The time just flies. So stick around. We're going to hear more from Barbara and hear more about the turning point and, what happened and how the school she's created and some of the research that's been coming out of it. Anyway, lots more good stuff to hear from this incredible woman. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal is your go-to product for great health. To maintain potency, Acidophilus Ultra is protected by a natural water-based enteric coating. This daily probiotic supports your health in so many ways. It helps boost your immune system, aids digestion and bloating, and that's just for starters. So remember the name, Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal. Get some now. To find a store near you, visit newrootsherbal.com. That's newrootsherbal.com.
Audiobooks gives you instant access to over 50,000 of the best sellers and hottest book titles in romance, mystery, fiction, and many other genres. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Audiobooks to get started.
YumFoodForLiving.com is the place to get easy allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit YumFoodForLiving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, the blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of yum. Don't wait. Visit YumFoodForLiving.com. YumFoodForLiving.com. That's YumFoodForLiving.com.
If you like to spend your television viewing time learning about some of the things that you may have missed in history class, or if history was your favorite subject, then you should check out the link to the History Channel on the HealthyLife.net advertiser page. Order DVD sets by series or by subject matter right from our homepage while you still enjoy your favorite HealthyLife.net show.
Being inspired by a speaker while learning everyday positive information that you can use to help your life is exactly what Dr. Theresa Nicassio does when she speaks in front of your group. From healthcare professionals to special needs parenting and everything in between, Dr. Theresa Nicassio can customize topics for your group on everything from health to psychology. To book Dr. Theresa Nicassio as a speaker for your group, visit YumFoodForLiving.com or call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
You're listening to HealthyLife.net, the radio network that brings positive talk with positive change to make your world a little better.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. If you're just joining us, today we're here with brain pioneer, educator, and advocate Barbara Arrowsmith-Young, talking about how she changed her brain through innovative cognitive exercises that she developed to reverse her own severe learning disabilities way before anybody knew it was even possible. And some of you may know also about her book called The Woman Who Changed Her Brain. That was out a few years ago, but now it's an updated version So you might want to check that out because there's just so much goodness here. And we're hearing more on that personal. We're getting really personal here. So just before the break, Barbara was talking about how hard it was to go through school and feeling like a loner, or feeling alone, isolated rather, and she wrote backwards. She wrote backwards. Words were backwards. She wrote from right to left and had to learn left to right. And but her parents were there, and just during the break, we were just chatting, and I was just saying that when you have parents, and I see this with a lot of the Arrowsmith parents, the Arrowsmith and Arrowsmith parents. That belief in your child, when any human being, whether it's about cognitive capacities or anything else, as a psychologist, I know that if someone believes in you, it makes a big difference. I don't know if you want to say anything else about your folks or and how they kind of emotionally held a space for you even when it was difficult. Would you be able to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, they really, really did. And again, given that this was a time when there wasn't really understanding of learning difficulties at all or learning disabilities. I like the term difficulty versus disability. Mm-hmm. But, they believed in me. I mean, they believed that I was valuable. They loved me. I think about the sacrifices that my mother made with the flashcards. I mean, probably wasn't fun for her to be spending her lunch hour and after school, helping me. But she was absolutely determined that, that I was going to learn to read and to write. And there was always this belief that, that I would be successful. I mean, my fears, though, because my experience in school was kind of opposite to that. And this is what I see. No matter how much, my parents would tell me, that I'm amazing, that they loved me, every day I walked into that classroom, and that was actually my reality, where I saw that I couldn't do things that other students could do. Even though I knew my parents had this belief in me, that wasn't my reality, my daily reality, because I spent, 5 days a week, all day in the classroom. But the other thing that both of my parents instilled in me, my mother was very much, a believer in, being of service and, giving back to the community. So that belief certainly was instilled in me. And my father was an inventor and a scientist, and he had this belief, again, that he instilled in me that, if there's a problem and there's currently no solution to that problem in the world, he said it's your responsibility to hunt and try to create a solution. And he said something, and then this piece, he said, and if the rest of the world says you can't do it, he said, don't be limited by conventional wisdom. He said, this is how science goes forward. And I just always held on to that because, through, my career, I've been told this is impossible. We all know the brain is fixed. There is no neuroplasticity. And I just remembered him saying, that don't be limited by this. And I believed then when I started to see the changes in myself through the application of neuroplasticity that if there was truth to what I was doing, eventually the world would come to see that. And here we are now in the age of neuroplasticity, neuroscience, and everything I was saying 40 years ago, now we know to be true. So I feel incredibly grateful and blessed, in my parents and their support and really the belief systems that they instilled in me.
Yeah. Well, I embrace this concept of being a possibilitarian, and it sounds like your dad was that, and that was instilled in you that, okay, and it's like, okay, this is a challenge, and sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most difficult challenges. And the motivation, having lived through what you did, knowing how devastating it is to have learning differences and struggle so much, that gave you the chutzpah to keep persevering.
It really did. And then, when I saw the change in myself, and I knew it wasn't compensation because I had tried every compensation that existed. I even invented some, right? And yes, with that heroic effort, I managed to get up to graduate school. But, compromising my immune system, pushing myself beyond any humane limits. I would never ask anybody to do it. I did sleeping overnight in the library, working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, sleeping 4 hours a night. So I knew what that could do, but the thing is, the compensations never can fully work because you're trying to compensate for something that isn't working properly. And then, in fact, we're actually seeing that in the research to me, which is fascinating, that, that the brains of these students, like my brain, are working so much harder, right? We're seeing they're hyper-connected, like they're over-connected in certain areas to compensate for areas where they're under-connected. So exactly what my experience was, that these areas are working really, really hard trying to do something that they're actually really not designed to do to perform, the functions of those areas that are underperforming. And, so what I saw after I got the breakthrough for myself was, I could actually learn in what I call real time, whereas before I lived in what I called lag time. I was always hours behind everybody else in understanding things, and sometimes even no matter how many hours I spent, I couldn't understand it. Now I could actually listen to a conversation, listen to a discussion, listen to a documentary, and understand it as it was happening, and that was profound. And so I knew something critical must have changed in my brain because for 26 years, I had never been able to do that. And after I got to a certain point in the cognitive program, I just was able to do that and do it without any kind of effort. So at that point, I thought, this is really positive, and I want to start taking it out into the world to help other people that are struggling, and then meeting people that didn't always have the same difficulties I had, and then creating more and more programs for a whole range of difficulties. And that was sort of the beginning of my mission.
And starting at the end of talking about these incredible programs that are helping people, it's like, what was the turning point? Can you talk? You mentioned at the very beginning about Luria's work and about the rat experiments of learning. Can you talk a little bit about that turning point? Because a lot of people, those of us who know know what kind of what happened, but those of you who don't know are probably going, what is she talking about? Cognitive exercises, right? Because this is where the innovation happened. So things weren't working, and then you learned about that soldier who had a certain part of his brain injured, who looked a lot like you, and then you learned about the rat research. And so can you just talk a little bit about that turning point and how you even thought of then starting, what these quote-unquote cognitive exercises were that you started experimenting with?
Absolutely. So, I remember vividly. It was August of 1977. It's like imprinted in my brain. I can see exactly where I was. And I was in graduate school at OISE, at University of Toronto, studying school psychology because my sort of university degrees were really trying to understand more about myself, child development, school psychology, knowing something was wrong but not really being able to figure out what it was. And to solve a problem, you kind of have to know what's the nature of the problem you're trying to solve. So I was at graduate school really, really struggling, and had gone to all my professors and said, I think I have a learning disability. And, of course, they said, well, you can't be in graduate school and have a learning disability, because at that time there wasn't a concept of being gifted and learning disabled, which now we know is possible. So they discounted me. And at that point, someone handed me Luria's book, The Man with the Shattered World, and that's where my whole life changed, because I saw my problems on the pages of the book.
Yes. So, we're going to hear more about Luria and the animal research, and also the research about Barbara's own work that's been happening. Dr. Laura Boyd and other folks who are doing some great looking at the functional MRI research and brain changes that are happening with those who are experiencing the Arrowsmith program. So stick around, folks. There's more great stuff to come right after the break.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, Food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions. The award-winning book, Yum, by Dr. Theresa Nicassio, is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
You have too little time to shop. So try Farm Fresh to You. They deliver organic food the way nature intended, delivered straight to your home or office, economically. Visit our web advertiser page and click on Farm Fresh to You now.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
If you're not in the U.S., listen up. SureTrader is one of the most trusted and reliable names in share trading. With 6-to-1 leverage and other perks, SureTrade is the best for penny stocks and day trades. To find out more, visit our advertiser page and click on the SureTrader banner.
Yumfoodforliving.com is the place to get easy allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit Yumfoodforliving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, a blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of Yum. Don't wait. Visit Yumfoodforliving.com. Yumfoodforliving.com. That's Yumfoodforliving.com.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. If you're just tuning in, we have with us today, we're so lucky to have with us today, Barbara Arrowsmith-Young, who was featured in Dr. Norman Deutsch's book, The Brain That Changes Itself, and Howard Eaton's award-winning children's book called The Brain Pioneer, and has written her own book, and it's just now come out, a revised edition, updated edition, called The Woman Who Changed Her Brain. And for those of you who've been listening, it's you already, I'm sure if you didn't know already, you know this woman is phenomenal. She's moved mountains that weren't supposed to be movable. And just before the break, we were talking about how Barbara was really, she had these severe learning challenges, and then she learned about this, she got handed this book. And so let's carry on from there, Luria's book, and how that kind of was a breakthrough for you.
It truly was. The book was called The Man with the Shattered World, and it told the story of a Russian soldier who, in a battle in World War II, had a very localized brain wound. And this book was a combination of Zazetsky, who's a soldier, writing his journal, talking about his experiences after the wound, and then Luria explaining what was going on in his brain. And this man, before the wound, he'd been gifted in mathematics, very, very successful. After the wound, he couldn't tell time. I'm reading this. I'm 25, 26. I can't tell time. He talks about how he can't understand concepts or relationships, like something like a fraction. Like he knows what 1 is, he knows what 4 is, but you put the 1 over a 4, it's a relationship of a part to a whole. He couldn't understand that. At 25, 26, couldn't understand that. Things like greater than, less than, all these conceptual, understandings he no longer could do. I hadn't been able to do them since birth. So now I knew that my problem, which I knew I had, was that part of my brain wasn't working. I mean, before it was kind of this amorphous sense of something really isn't right, but I don't know what it is. And to be able to solve a problem, you have to understand what is the nature of the problem. So I knew, okay, my brain isn't working, and so I started reading more of Luria's work to try to understand, what was going wrong. And then at the same time, what am I going to do about it? So that was when I came across Rosenzweig's work out of Berkeley, and he was working with rats, which are a lot easier to work with than people, and finding that if you provided rats with a lot of stimulations, lots of toys to play with, And then you gave them a little rat intelligence test, which is running a maze. The rats with lots of stimulation learned the mazes more efficiently than rats with less stimulation. And then he was able to look at the brains afterwards, and he found that stimulation had led to neurophysiological changes, some more dendrites, some more branches on the neurons, more neurotransmitters. So basically, that stimulation had led to positive changes in the brain, which led to better learning. And then he had one line, well, actually two lines in one of his articles. One, he talked about differential stimulation leading to differential effects. So the idea was if you could target the stimulation to a specific function in the brain, maybe you could change that function. And then he put down the challenge. He said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could take this knowledge and translate it into education to change the possibility of the learner? And that was like a gauntlet thrown down, in front of me. And I thought, okay, I have a very specific part of my brain not working based on Luria's interpretation. And can I find an activity or a task that will make that part of the brain work and strengthen it? And I had no idea if it would work because, everybody was saying the brain is fixed, you can't change it, this is not possible. But I was desperate and I was determined, and I figured, what do I have to lose but time? And I couldn't tell time, so I figured, let me try. And so I created the first exercise using clocks. Not that I particularly wanted to learn how to tell time, that wasn't my intention, but I wanted to make that part of my brain process relationships, which it couldn't do. And to interpret time, you have to process a relationship between the hour hand and the minute hand. And I was terrible. I had to have somebody help me. And at one point I was wearing 3 watches on my wrist, and other than it being very heavy, it didn't really do much. But over time, through trial and error and experimentation, I came up with drawing clocks, starting to see the relationships, with hundreds of hours. And then eventually I could tell time, but I wasn't feeling cognitive change. And then there's this whole idea of complexity. So I kept making it more difficult and more complex to make my brain work even harder. So I added a second hand. So now I could read a clock with hours, minutes, and seconds, and that was great, but still not feeling change. And it was the next level. So I added a fourth hand, which was a fraction of a second. And it was at the point of basically getting 100% accurate and doing that kind of at light speed as quickly as was humanly possible that my world changed, right? And that's where I knew that this was forcing my brain to process relationships, because now I could listen to conversations. I could actually open a math book and look at the formula and understand it from first principles rather than just trying to memorize. I could read a page and understand it in the book as I read it, and I could read the next page and connect it to that page, whereas before I would have had to read that page 10 or 15 times and still not be certain that I understood it. So at that point I thought, okay, I have some other areas of difficulty. I was very clumsy. I couldn't create spatial maps. I was always getting lost. So I went back into Luria, tried to figure out exercises for those 2 areas, created them, went through the same process with different exercises, and now I can read maps, I can navigate, I travel all around the world, I don't get lost, I am coordinated, I can actually play sports. So I realized there was value in putting these 2 lines of research together. If you can identify the function, then you have to find an activity or task that will stimulate or work that function. And I believe my work is, one way into the brain and working these areas to strengthen them. And there are probably multiple ways into the brain to do this. And this is, what I've developed and created. And now we train teachers all around the world. And the school that you mentioned in Vancouver, Eton Arrowsmith, is one of those schools that offers the program to individuals from elementary school right up to adults. And now we're working with people with acquired brain injury.
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to say. it's brilliant. It's starting with the kids, but then, I used to work in a rehab center also, and also worked with people who had brain injuries as well. This is way back in the 1980s. I would love to get you and Jill Bolt to get Taylor together, my Stroke of Insight, and talk about this, because there's so many, if you haven't already, there's just so much possibility here about the reawakening. But one of the critical things that I recall in her book is, there's the sooner you can get active brain, the more likely you're going to be able to, better, because you're exercising it. Otherwise, it's atrophying. But you don't give up on it. It's like those areas are there, and so those of you who are listening, we are going to have to go to a break in just a flash here, but who maybe have or have a loved one who's had a stroke or other traumatic brain injury. This is relevant to you too. It's not just for kids. I mean, it's great for kids as well, and it's great for everyone. But anyway, this has huge and far-reaching implications. So stick around. You're going to hear more and about some of the new initiatives and a little bit about the research when we come back.
Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal is your go-to product for great health. To maintain potency, Acidophilus Ultra is protected by a natural water-based enteric coating. This daily probiotic supports your health in so many ways. It helps boost your immune system, aids digestion and bloating, and that's just for starters. So remember the name, Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal. Get some now. To find a store near you, visit newrootsherbal.com. That's newrootsherbal.com.
VMware is a fresh perspective for virtualization on the cloud. Shaping the future, this all-in-one platform delivers virtual cloud service on any cloud. Visit our HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on VMware.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
For the best in business class travel, count on Cheapo Air. Cheapo Air has the best price guarantee, 24/7 customer service, and easy booking online or by phone. To experience your hassle-free journey, start by going to HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Cheapo Air.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. If you're just joining us, we are here with Barbara Arrowsmith-Young talking about a whole new method of overcoming learning disabilities like dyslexia, like even things around coordination, but also even around post-traumatic brain injury implications and so forth. So can we just start a little bit, talk a little bit about the research that's coming out, and also maybe we can talk about the new programs that you've got happening.
Absolutely. So, I mean, to me, the research is it's very rewarding. It feels like in this past year, sort of 40 years of what I've been saying is all coming together. So we've had lots of research over the years, really looking at outcome measures, so looking at as individuals go through this program, they accelerate in their rate of learning, cognitive abilities change, academic abilities change, social emotional abilities change. But now what we're seeing for the first time, we're having the opportunity to go in and look into the brain and see what's changing in the brain that's leading to these behavioral changes we see. And that's in 1977, I postulated that this work is changing the brain, which is leading to these other changes. And now we're taking kind of a look in, and we're seeing some really fascinating things. So, I mean, one of the things we're seeing is that the brains of students with learning difficulties are actually different than students without learning difficulties, which makes sense. I mean, that was my experience. And, that what they're having to do, the brains are having to work so much harder than the brains of students without learning difficulties. And that's that kind of heroic effort. They're trying to compensate for the areas of difficulty. And what the research is showing us is over time, as students go through this program, and we're looking at students in the 6-week cognitive intensive program, which is doing the exercise that I struggled with, which is reasoning and relationships, and then we're looking at students over the 1-year academic year program. And we're seeing in both cases that this hyperconnectivity, so the brain having to work really inefficiently and too hard, is starting to calm down. And these underconnected areas are starting to strengthen. And at the end of 1 year, the brains of the students that have gone through this program are starting to approximate the brains of the students without the difficulties. So that, to me, is really, really incredibly powerful and what we want to see. And we're seeing some critical networks change. So there's this what's called the salience network. And if we think of salience, it's kind of like what's critical, what's important, what should we be paying attention to, what's necessary in our environment. And we're seeing that a lot of students with learning difficulties aren't, that area isn't functioning as well as it should be. And as the students go through the program, that area starts to improve. So they start to be able to perceive in their world what's important, what's necessary, and then what should they do about that? And I think about, one of the students that we just interviewed for the revision and the update of my book. And he said, one day he walked into his classroom, I think he's in grade 7, and he said, where have I been all my life? Like, how come I didn't see these things? And we hear that over and over again with these students. It's almost like they've been asleep or in a fog because their world hasn't really been salient. I mean, they haven't noticed the cues and picked up what's important as other students have, and we're changing the brain to allow them to do that, and that's essential for learning. So, that's really, to me, really exciting, and it's sort of putting the kind of stamp on what's happening in the brain. And we're doing this research both at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois, with Dr. Greg Rose, and then at UBC with Dr. Lara Boyd's team. And we're really starting kind of a global research initiative. So the program is going into a school in Estonia in September, and we're in conversation with a researcher at the University of Tallinn in Estonia. So she's going to start investigating, again, students going through this program. We're working with a team of researchers at a university in Madrid, again, seeing changes in visual spatial ability, changes in planning abilities, working memory. So to me, it's really exciting that, I mean, I don't want to say that the world is catching up, but in a sense, we're now going in and seeing what we've seen behaviorally for 40 years. Now we're seeing the brain changes that are supporting that. And my goal is to develop a research institute and bring researchers from all around the world to start to investigate, more and more in terms of how we can improve the program, how we can even benefit students more than we're currently doing. So that's my vision. I'm committed to every single child that's in this program around the world, and we're now in over 100 schools in 10 countries, to ensure that they get the best possible delivery of the program, and I believe the research will help us do that.
That's fantastic. And if any of you want to be moved to some tears, if you go to the TheresaNicassio.com page and go to her page and watch some of the YouTubes, and particularly of some of the kids and parents who've been through it, you won't be sorry you did. Real quickly, can you talk a little bit about Mark Watson's BrainX program?
Oh, absolutely. So there's the Watson Center Society for Brain Health, which is in the Vancouver region. I think it's in Surrey. And that initiative started just a few years ago. And we had seen over the years some people with traumatic brain injury that had been through the program and achieved benefit. And Mark was quite passionate about this group. So asked, could we start an initiative to apply the work to people with traumatic brain injury. And we started with a research study with Dr. Virgie Babel at UBC, and we found at the 3-month mark, again, the similar kinds of changes that we're seeing in students with learning difficulties. We found like they became, able to reason, to be able to process information, and we saw changes in the brain. So now this initiative is going forward, and we're seeing really remarkable results. Again, similar changes in the brain, because this application is changing, networks in the brain, connectivity in the brain. So allowing these individuals, to get back out into the world and function. I mean, there was this individual that was an elementary school teacher that I interviewed for the update of the book and couldn't work after he had been hit by a drunk driver. And now he's back teaching elementary school full-time as a result of the strengthened cognitive capacity. So there's huge application. Even cognitive aging, as we're getting older and we're not as sharp, there's application of this work to that group of people.
Terrific. Thank you for joining us, and thank all of you. It was wonderful having you here, Barbara, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in today, and I want to thank our sponsor, New Roots Herbal, for making this show possible. Next time, we'll have Marilee McLean, and I hope you've all enjoyed this show. I'm Theresa, and this is the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. Until next time, have a wonderful week.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
Shh! Over here. Here's a secret for a virus-free computer. ESET. They've been a pioneer in the antivirus industry for over 25 years. 25 years of innovative, top-rated antivirus protection. ESET's award-winning security solutions provide a safe online experience for over 100 million home and business computer owners. They are so affordable, fast, and simple to use. So be gone, you blue screen of death. ESET's on my computer. If it's not on yours, visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on ESET now.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.